She controlled $40 million a year in illegal gambling and never fired a shot. If you love stories about power, deception, and the brilliant minds who beat the mob at their own game, make sure to follow, because this story rewrites everything you thought you knew about organized crime. Harlem, New York, January 1928, 7:15 a.m. A black woman in a fur-trimmed coat steps out of a Packard sedan on West 137th Street. Her name is Stephanie St. Clair. She runs the numbers racket in Harlem. The Italian Mafia wants her empire. She will not give it to them. Inside her office above a barbershop, 3 men wait. They collect money from runners across 20 city blocks. Each runner handles 30 to 50 bets per day. The minimum bet is 1 penny. The maximum is 50 cents. The average daily take from one block is $200. St. Clair controls 40 blocks. She clears $8,000 per day. That is $2,900,000 per year, tax-free. The numbers game is simple. Bettors choose a 3-digit number between 00 and 999. Winning numbers come from the last 3 digits of the daily stock market clearinghouse totals published in newspapers. If your number hits, you win 600 times your bet. A nickel becomes $30. In 1928 Harlem, $30 feeds a family for 2 weeks. St. Clair was born in Martinique in 1897. She arrived in New York in 1912 with $10. She worked as a seamstress on the Lower East Side for 3 years. In 1915 she moved to Harlem and started running numbers for a man named Henry Miro. By 1923 she had her own operation. By 1926 she employed 40 runners and 10 collectors. By 1928 she was the most powerful numbers banker in Harlem. She keeps records in code. Every bet is logged. Every payout is verified. She never misses a payment. Her reputation is built on honesty in a dishonest business. Bettors trust her because she never cheats. Runners stay loyal because she pays on time and takes care of legal fees when they get arrested. The New York Police Department knows about her. Precinct captains in Harlem receive $500 per month to look the other way. Beat cops get $20 per week. When a runner is arrested, St. Clair sends a lawyer within 2 hours. The lawyer posts bail. The case disappears. The system works because everyone gets paid, but the Italian Mafia does not get paid. And they want in Dutch Schultz-born Arthur Flegenheimer in the Bronx in 1901. By 1928, he controls bootlegging operations across the Upper Manhattan and the Bronx. He makes $8 million per year selling illegal alcohol. But prohibition will not last forever. He knows this. He needs a new racket. He chooses the numbers game. Schultz sends men into Harlem in early 1928. They visit numbers bankers and make offers. Join Schultz's organization and pay 30% of your take or face consequences. Most bankers agree. The consequences are broken hands, burned offices, and dead runners. Schultz takes control of 60% of Harlem's numbers operations by June 1928. Stephanie St. Clair refuses. On June 18, 1928, 2 of Schultz's men visit her office. They offer the same deal, 30% and protection from competitors. She tells them to leave. They do not leave. They say they will be back. She says they should not come back. 3 days later, one of her runners is beaten outside a policy bank on Lenox Avenue. His right arm is broken in 2 places. St. Clair visits him in Harlem Hospital and pays his medical bills. She tells him he will keep his job. Then she makes a phone call. Her phone call is to Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Johnson is 21 years old. He arrived in Harlem from South Carolina in 1919. He works as an enforcer for various gambling and bootlegging operations. He is 6 feet tall, weighs 200 pounds, and has been arrested 12 times for assault. He is loyal, smart, and brutal. St. Clair hires him as her bodyguard and chief enforcer. She pays him $100 per week. In 1928, that is more than most Harlem families earn in a month. Schultz's men come back on July 2, 1928. This time, Bumpy Johnson is in the office. The conversation lasts 90 seconds. Johnson does not touch them. He stands behind St. Clair's desk and says nothing. The men leave. They do not return, but Schultz does not give up. He changes tactics. Instead of threatening St. Clair directly, he targets her infrastructure. Between July and September 1928, 8 of her runners are arrested in coordinated police raids. The arrests happen in precincts where St. Clair does not pay protection money. Schultz has bought new cops. He is forcing her to expand her bribery network or lose territory. St. Clair responds by going public. On September 14, 1928, she writes a letter to the New York Age, a black newspaper in Harlem. The letter does not mention Schultz by name. It accuses the NYPD of selective enforcement. It points out that white bookmakers in Midtown operate openly while black numbers runners in Harlem are arrested daily. The letter is published on September 21st. It creates a scandal. Harlem residents read the letter and see the truth. The police do not care about illegal gambling. They care about control. St. Clair becomes a symbol of resistance. Her business grows. Bettors who previously used other bankers switch to her because she is fighting back. Schultz escalates. On October 8, 1928, 3 of St. Clair's collectors are ambushed on 132nd Street. One is shot in the leg, another is beaten unconscious. The third escapes. St. Clair visits the hospital again. She pays the medical bills again. Then she orders Bumpy Johnson to retaliate. Johnson and 4 other men find 2 of Schultz's collectors on October 12th. The confrontation happens outside a speakeasy on 8th Avenue. Johnson breaks one man's jaw with a pipe. The other man is thrown through a storefront window. No one is killed. The message is clear. St. Clair will not be pushed out. The war continues through the winter of 1928 and into 1929. Schultz's men sabotage St. Clair's operations. They intercept runners and steal cash. They intimidate bettors. They bribe her employees to switch sides. St. Clair loses 5 runners and 2 collectors. Her daily take drops from $8,000 to $6,000, but she does not quit. Instead, she innovates. In January 1929, she changes the way winning numbers are determined. Instead of using stock market totals, she uses the last 3 digits of the total handle at Tropical Park Racetrack in Florida. The numbers are published in the daily racing form. The change makes it harder for outsiders to predict or manipulate results. Bettors trust the new system. Her business stabilizes. Schultz grows frustrated. He has been fighting St. Clair for over a year. She has cost him time, money, and men. Other numbers bankers in Harlem are watching. If St. Clair wins, they might resist too. Schultz cannot allow that. In March 1929, Schultz tries bribery. He sends an intermediary to St. Clair with an offer. Sell your operation for $50,000 and leave New York. She refuses. The intermediary increases the offer to $75,000. She refuses again. Schultz realizes money will not work. On April 3, 1929, the NYPD raids St. Clair's office. She is arrested and charged with operating an illegal gambling enterprise. Bail is set at $10,000. She posts bail within 3 hours. Her lawyer argues the arrest is politically motivated. The judge dismisses the case on April 10th. Due to lack of evidence, St. Clair walks free. The raid backfires. Harlem sees it as proof that Schultz is using the police to destroy St. Clair. Her reputation grows. She is no longer just a numbers banker. She is a folk hero. By May 1929, St. Clair controls 50 blocks. Her daily take is back up to $8,000. Schultz controls the rest of Harlem, but he cannot break her. She has money, loyalty, and public support. He has violence and police connections. The stalemate continues. Schultz decides to wait. He knows St. Clair cannot fight forever. Every arrest costs her money. Every confrontation risks her life. He believes time is on his side. He is wrong. On June 15, 1929, St. Clair does something unexpected. She stops paying protection money to the police. She announces this publicly in another letter to the New York Age. The letter states that she will no longer bribe corrupt officers. She will instead use that money to hire better lawyers and pay bail for arrested runners. The police respond immediately. Raids on her operation increase. Between June and August 1929, 23 of her runners are arrested. St. Clair pays bail every time. She hires 4 full-time lawyers. The legal fees cost her $3,000 per month. But she holds firm. The strategy works. The constant arrests create a paper trail. Judges begin to notice that St. Clair's runners are arrested far more often than other numbers runners in the city. Defense lawyers argue selective enforcement. Cases are dismissed. The NYPD looks corrupt. Public opinion shifts further in St. Clair's favor. Schultz tries a new approach. In September 1929, he offers a truce. His intermediary proposes a split. Schultz will control northern Harlem above 145th Street. St. Clair will control southern Harlem below 145th Street. No interference. No violence. St. Clair considers the offer for 2 days. Then she rejects it. She wants all of Harlem. Schultz is furious. He orders his men to escalate. On September 22, 1929, a firebomb is thrown through the window of St. Clair's office. The building does not burn down, but the message is clear. Schultz is willing to kill her. St. Clair moves her operations to a new location. She stops sleeping in the same place 2 nights in a row. Bumpy Johnson hires additional bodyguards. She travels in different cars. She changes her daily routine. She survives. But the stock market does not. On October 29, 1929, the market crashes. The Great Depression begins. By November 1929, unemployment in Harlem reaches 20%. By January 1930, it is 30%. People have less money to bet. The numbers game shrinks. St. Clair's daily take drops to $5,000. Schultz's take drops proportionally. Both are losing money, but Schultz has bootlegging income. St. Clair only has the numbers. She adapts by lowering minimum bets. The new minimum is half a penny. Bettors can now play for almost nothing. Volume increases. Revenue stabilizes. Schultz does not adapt. His operation is too large. He has hundreds of employees. His overhead is enormous. He cannot afford to lower minimums. His numbers business collapses. By mid-1930, he abandons most of his Harlem operations and focuses on bootlegging. St. Clair wins. She reclaims nearly all of Harlem's numbers game by the end of 1930. Her daily take is back up to $7,000. She has survived the Mafia, the police, and the Depression, but her victory is temporary. In 1931, the federal government begins prosecuting gangsters for tax evasion. Al Capone is convicted in October 1931. Dutch Schultz is indicted in January 1933. He flees to New Jersey. The heat is off. St. Clair expands again. By 1932, she controls the largest independent numbers operation in New York City. She employs 60 runners and 15 collectors. Her annual income is $2 million. She lives in a brownstone on Strivers Row, one of the most exclusive black neighborhoods in Harlem. She wears custom-made dresses and drives a Cadillac V16. She donates money to churches, schools, and tenant organizations. She is beloved, but the Mafia is not finished. In 1933, Lucky Luciano takes control of New York's Italian Mafia. He is younger, smarter, and more strategic than Schultz. He does not use violence as a first option. He uses negotiation. He studies St. Clair's operation and realizes she is vulnerable in one area: distribution. St. Clair's numbers operation relies on runners collecting bets on foot. The system is slow and inefficient. Luciano proposes a modernization plan. He offers to provide St. Clair with access to his network of speakeasies, cigar shops, and legitimate storefronts. Bettors could place bets at these locations instead of waiting for runners. In exchange, Luciano wants 25% of the take. St. Clair rejects the offer. She does not trust Luciano. She believes he will use the partnership to take over her operation from the inside. She is probably right. Luciano does not push, he waits. In 1933, prohibition is repealed. Bootlegging ends. The Mafia needs new income. The numbers game becomes a priority. In early 1934, Luciano and Schultz reunite. Schultz returns from hiding in New Jersey. The tax case against him is still pending, but he is back in New York. Luciano convinces him to try again in Harlem. This time they will work together. The combined forces of Luciano and Schultz are too strong. Between January and June 1934, St. Clair loses 15 runners to violence and intimidation. Her collectors are robbed at gunpoint. Her betting locations are raided by Mafia enforcers, not police. She fights back, but she is outnumbered. On July 4, 1934, Bumpy Johnson is arrested for assault. The charge is legitimate. He beat a Mafia enforcer unconscious in a dispute over territory. The judge sets bail at $50,000. St. Clair cannot afford it. Johnson is sent to Sing Sing prison. He will serve 10 years. Without Johnson, St. Clair is vulnerable. Schultz moves in immediately. Between July and September 1934, St. Clair loses 30 blocks. Her daily take drops to $3,000. She is losing the war. In October 1934, she makes a desperate decision. She goes to the police. not to bribe them, but to cooperate. She provides detailed information about Schultz's operations. She names dirty cops. She provides dates, locations, and amounts of bribes. She gives the NYPD everything they need to arrest Schultz. The information is passed to federal authorities. The case against Schultz strengthens. In November 1934, Schultz is re-indicted on additional charges. He flees New York again, but the damage is done. St. Clair's cooperation with police destroys her reputation in Harlem. The community sees her as a traitor. Bettors stop using her service. Runners quit. Collectors refuse to work for her. By December 1934, her operation is finished. She tries to rebuild in 1935. She hires new runners. She opens new betting locations, but the trust is gone. Harlem has turned on her. On October 23, 1935, Dutch Schultz is assassinated in Newark, New Jersey. He is shot by Murder, Inc. on orders from Lucky Luciano. Schultz dies the next day. St. Clair hears the news and sends a telegram to his lawyer. It reads, "As ye sow, so shall ye reap." The telegram is published in newspapers. It becomes famous, but it does not save her business. By 1936, Luciano controls 90% of the numbers game in Harlem. St. Clair controls nothing. She is broke. She sells her Cadillac. She moves out of her brownstone. She rents a small apartment on 139th Street. In 1937, she is arrested for assault. She stabbed a man during an argument. The man survives. She is convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison. She serves 18 months at the Women's House of Detention in Greenwich Village. She is released in 1939. Bumpy Johnson is still in prison. The numbers game is fully controlled by the Mafia. There is no place for her. She tries to open a small betting operation, but the Mafia shuts it down within a week. She is warned not to try again. She works odd jobs for the next few years. She cleans houses. She works as a seamstress again. She fades from public view. In 1944, Bumpy Johnson is released from prison. He does not return to St. Clair. He works for the Mafia now. He becomes an enforcer for the Genovese crime family. He controls the numbers in Harlem for them. He makes a fortune. St. Clair sees him once on the street in 1945. They do not speak. She spends the rest of her life in Harlem. She never rebuilds her empire. She never regains her wealth. She lives quietly in small apartments. She attends church. She reads newspapers. She watches the numbers game continue without her. In the 1950s, she begins writing letters again. Not to newspapers this time, but to politicians and civil rights leaders. She writes about police corruption, economic inequality, and systemic racism. Her letters are eloquent and detailed. Some are published in small black newspapers. Most are ignored. In 1960, she is arrested for disorderly conduct. She was involved in a street protest against police brutality. The charge is dismissed. It is her final arrest. Throughout the 1960s, she becomes known as a neighborhood elder. Young activists visit her apartment to hear stories about old Harlem. She tells them about the numbers game, the Mafia, and the fight for independence. She does not romanticize it. She describes it as business and survival. She remains sharp and opinionated. In a 1965 interview with a Columbia University student, she is asked if she regrets her life. She says no. She is asked if she would do it again. She says yes, but smarter. By the late 1960s, her health declines. She suffers from arthritis and high blood pressure. She walks with a cane. She rarely leaves her apartment. Friends bring her groceries and newspapers. She still reads every day. On December 1, 1969, Stephanie St. Clair dies in her sleep. She is 72 years old. Her death certificate lists her occupation as housewife. There is no mention of the numbers game, no mention of the Mafia war, no mention of the millions of dollars or the empire she built and lost. Her funeral is held at St. Philip's Episcopal Church on West 134th Street. Fewer than 30 people attend. There are no Mafia representatives. Bumpy Johnson does not come. The service lasts 20 minutes. She is buried in an unmarked grave at Frederick Douglass Memorial Park in Staten Island. The newspapers barely notice. The New York Times does not run an obituary. The Amsterdam News, Harlem's largest black newspaper, publishes a 3-paragraph notice on page 12. It describes her as a former businesswoman and community figure. It does not mention the numbers. Within a year, most of Harlem forgets her name. The numbers game continues under Mafia control until the 1970s, when state lotteries take over. The system she fought to protect becomes legal and state-run. The government now does what she did, but calls it revenue. In 1972, Bumpy Johnson dies of a heart attack. He is 66. His funeral is attended by hundreds. He is remembered as a Harlem legend. St. Clair is not mentioned in his obituary. Decades pass. Historians begin researching Harlem's golden age. They find references to St. Clair in old newspapers and police records. They piece together her story. By the 1990s, she is rediscovered. Books and documentaries describe her as a pioneer, a gangster and a rebel. In 2007, a historical marker is placed near her old office on West 137th Street. It reads, Stephanie St. Clair, 1897-1969, known as Madam Queen. She ran the numbers racket in Harlem and resisted organized crime's attempts to take over her business. In 2019, the New York City Council passes a resolution honoring her as a trailblazer in business and community activism. The resolution does not mention that her business was illegal. Today, she is remembered as a symbol of black entrepreneurship and resistance. Tour guides in Harlem tell her story. Podcasts analyze her strategies. Academics write papers about her. She is celebrated as a woman who fought the Mafia and the system and survived. But the facts are simpler. She ran an illegal gambling operation. She made millions. She fought the Mafia and lost. She cooperated with police and destroyed her reputation. She spent her final 30 years in poverty and obscurity. She died alone. The numbers game she controlled no longer exists. The Mafia that fought her is mostly gone. The Harlem she knew has changed completely. The buildings where she worked have been torn down or renovated. The streets are renamed. The people are different, but the story remains. A black woman from Martinique arrived in New York with $10 and built an empire. She faced down the most powerful criminals in America. She refused to surrender. She lost everything but never apologized. On December 1st, 1969, the woman who once controlled $40 million a year in illegal money was buried in an unmarked grave. The city moved on within hours. But the legend would outlive them all.